Good. All right, everyone. Good evening. Welcome to Beyond Baroque Literary Arts Center. My name is Quentin Ring. I'm Beyond Baroque's executive director, and we are here on this lovely spring evening to celebrate the launch of Tom Laichas' newest book, 300 Streets of Venice, California. Yes. We have Tom here. We also have Beth Ruscio, Mike Songson, Susan Suntry. We're going to have a great reading. Really looking forward to it. We'll get into that in a second, but I wanted to start our evening by acknowledging Beyond Baroque's presence on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territory of the Gabrielina Tongva peoples. We acknowledge the wrong done to these peoples through settler colonialism, genocidal practices, and the violent dispossession of their land. As an arts organization, we are committed to uplifting Indigenous writers and communities and acknowledging these people's presence still here with us as caretakers of this land. As many of you know, Beyond Baroque is a space for everyone dedicated to the artistic possibilities of language. It's for writers, artists, readers, and above all, poets. We were founded in 1968 by George Drury Smith. And over the past 55 years, we've nurtured LA literature through our readings, workshops, exhibitions, archiving, community building, and really all kinds of other sort of unclassifiable artistic events that go on right here in this theater. We do have an extensive program of readings and workshops coming up. I really encourage everyone to come back next weekend, Saturday, April 8th. We have California's newest poet laureate, Lee Herrick, reading here. He's in town for just a couple days. I think that's going to be a great reading. Later in the month, we have Jackie Oshiro and Lynn Thompson reading. I believe that's April 16th. We will be at the LA Times Book Festival if you want to stop by there on April 21st and 22nd. And then at the end of the month, we have the second annual Los Angeles International Poetry Film Festival, which we launched last year, which has, I think, films from, 13 countries around the world. There'll be a panel, there'll be a program on Friday night, and then a full slate of films on Saturday. So that's very exciting for us as well. So please come back for that. It'd be wonderful if you could show your support for our programming by becoming a member or renewing your membership. If it's lapsed, we do depend on members' donations to underwrite all of our programming. It helps keep programs like this free. Sometimes we do have to charge, but even if we do charge, if you're a member, you'll get free admission or occasionally a discounted admission, depending on the program. You get a discount on our paid workshops, and you'll get a discount in our bookstore as well. It really does help us, so you can see Jessica in the bookstore after the show to inquire about that. A big thank you to all of you who are members already or who contribute. And I also want to say a big thanks to all of our staff working on this program. Eric Alberg, who's in the booth, Genesis Perez as well, Jessica Wong in the bookstore. They keep everything running. I trot up here on stage and ramble on. That's kind of the way it works. But tonight we have with us, as I said, Tom Laichas, and this is a really, truly wonderful event to be able to host because Tom is really one of our own in many, many ways. I think I've known Tom 5-6 years, maybe something like that. The pandemic makes it all a little blurry. But he came, I think he's been coming to Beyond Baroque a lot longer than that, but he came to get involved in our workshops, offered to volunteer. I've gotten to know him over a number of years, and he is a brilliant poet. It's been just really, really wonderful to watch him develop over the past several years, release several great books. He's a historian as well, and as someone who works in this space, which really encompasses like a huge swath of LA's literary history, it's really been a joy to sort of talk with someone so interested in LA literary communities and their history and the poets who've come through here and how that ties to a sense of place, a sense of the different developments in Los Angeles over the years that have sort of affected the literary arts. And he's just a really wonderful, generous soul. He is led our Wednesday night workshop several times, and he's currently doing so at the moment. So he's not only a great poet, he's a great teacher and facilitator as well. So if anybody's interested in checking out that workshop, it's Wednesday nights on Zoom. Somewhat controversially, I think, for some of our Wednesday night members. I'm looking at you, Tit. No, I'm just kidding. No, he does a brilliant job. at running that workshop. And he's just a really wonderful poet. And this book in particular, is about Venice. And Venice has a deep history with poetry, partially associated with this place, but not only this place. And it's a particularly rare thing these days to have a book of poetry really celebrating Venice or thinking about Venice itself. And for that reason, too, I'm very excited about this program. So I won't say too much more about Tom or the program, other than just to encourage everyone to buy his book afterwards. I'm sure he'll sign it, buy all of our authors' books. Tom himself will introduce the rest of our readers for the evening. So please, everyone, give a very warm round of applause to Tom Laichas.
So I want to thank all of you for coming tonight. Much appreciated. Thanks also to those of you who are on YouTube. I am hopefully staring straight at your eyes there. I want to thank Quentin and Jimmy and Ivan and Eric and Genesis for making Beyond Baroque so warm and welcoming. I'm going to shortly introduce a few friends who are going to read here tonight: Susan Suntry, Mike Songson, and Beth Ruscio. But before I do, I want to invoke the blessings of the poetry gods. We do not talk about poetry gods much anymore, and odes to muses are very much out of fashion. So to help, I'm going to go back 200 years to a favorite poem from my Victorian childhood. John Keats, there's a favorite, A Song About Myself. There was a naughty boy, and a naughty boy was he. He would not stop at home, he could not quiet be. He took in his knapsack a book full of vowels, and a shirt with some towels, a slight cap for nightcap, a hairbrush comb ditto, new stockings for old ones would split. Oh, this knapsack, tight his back, he riveted close, and followed his nose to the north, and he followed his nose to the north. Was a naughty boy, and a naughty boy was he, for nothing would he do but scribble poetry. He took an inkstand in his hand, and a pen big as 10 in the other, and away in a pother he ran to the mountains, and fountains, and ghostes, and postes, and witches, and ditches, and wrote in his coat when the weather was cool, fear of gout, and without, when the weather was warm, oh, the charm, to follow one's nose to the north, to follow one's nose to the north. There was a naughty boy, and a naughty boy was he. He kept little fishes in washing tubs 3, in spite the might of the maid, or not afraid of granny good. He often would hurly-burly get up early, and go by hook or crook to the brook, and bring home miller's thumb, tittlebat, not over fat, minnow small as the stall of a glove, not above the size of a nice little baby's little fingers. Oh, he made, was his trade, a fish, pretty kettle, a kettle, a kettle, a fish, a pretty kettle, a kettle. There was a naughty boy, and a naughty boy was he. He ran away to Scotland, the people for to see. There he found that the ground was as hard, that a yard was as long, that a song was as merry, that a cherry was as red, that lead was as weighty, that fourscore was as 80, that a door was as wooden as in England. So he stood in his shoes, and he wondered. He stood in his shoes, and he wondered. Before I read, thank you. Thank you. Before I read my own scribbled poetry, I want you to hear from 3 of my friends. In part, I invited Susan Suntry, Mike Songson, and Beth Ruscio as a way of thanking them for writing blurbs for the back of my book. This is the front, and there they are on the back. Blurbs have a slightly suspect reputation. I see some people who've had blurbs written about them. Nearly a century ago, George Orwell, no less, lamented what he believed to be the decline of the novel, which is, quote, being shouted out of existence by the disgusting tripe of blurb reviewers. I think Orwell was wrong. I am grateful for blurbs. I think they're needed. There is a lot to read, and even attentive and experienced readers rely in part, though we don't want to admit it, on back cover appreciations to direct ourselves to new authors. It is not a job you get paid to do. All right. And it requires, if you're going to be any good at it, a close and sympathetic reading, yet a reading that does not misrepresent the text or compromise your own integrity. Anyway, I'm deeply grateful to Susan, Mike, and Beth for taking the time to write something for the book and for much else. So thank you. With that said, it is my pleasure to introduce Susan Suntree. 6 years ago, newly retired, I was trying to figure out where I'd find a circle of friends with whom I could work on craft. Deirdre Gaynor, a neighbor of mine, who's here tonight, thank you, happened by, and I spoke about it to her, only to find that one of Venice's longest running writing circles was just 4 doors up the street. And that is where I met Susan. We have shared our work with one another ever since. She is among my most trusted writing partners. She has put more work into than anyone else save my family into critiquing this book. I want you to check out Susan's Dear Traveler, published by Finishing Line Press, and also, most impressively, Sacred Sites, the award-winning epic verse history of Los Angeles, which is now out in both an audiobook and in a revised second edition from University of Nebraska Press. And if you know anything about poetry, having something come out in a second edition, that's really impressive. These are deeply felt and exceptionally ambitious works. So I want you to give a warm welcome, please, for Susan Suntree.
Well, it just gives me so much pleasure, just real joy to be here and celebrate the launch of Tom's book, which I deeply admire. I mean, it's geographical, and God knows I've got an interest in geography, but it's also cultural, historical, and the language. And also, I really appreciate his language and especially his imagination. So, I'm into it. It's good. My theme tonight is spring, and I'm going for it. It's just, it's so wonderful to have a few days of sunshine. And the flowers are just going crazy. Isn't that something? Oh, I forgot to take my mask off. I'm all muffled. I'm sorry. Thank you, Deirdre. Anyway, so I'm going to begin reading from Sacred Sites, a piece about spring that involves spring. And Sacred Sites tells the story. It's a narrative poem that tells the story of the origins of the Southern California landscape from the Big Bang to the present. I mean, why not? You're going to start at the beginning. That's where all myths start. And it's from the point of view of Western science. That's book 1. And book 2 are the indigenous narratives, myths, and songs of the people of Southern California. How did they answer the question? How did things come to be the way they are? The end is an epilogue where the 2 stories come together. So in honor of the season, we're going to head back to 100 million years ago. I know it's very hard to, at least it is for me, to imagine the world without the color of flower petals. But until 100 million years ago, the earth was utterly green. I mean, there was no other color in the vegetation at all. And then because everything changes, that changed. 100 million years ago. For 30 million years, plants shed fertilizing pollen into the wind, or coat the legs of visiting insects come to drink the plant's sweet, nutritious nectar, who carry the golden treasure to the next plant. They carve a pact into the core of their lives. Plant plus insect equals life. We think about this when we think about the insect Armageddon that's going on right now, so we mustn't forget that. Then, one day, somewhere in the world's green expanse, in field or tropical forest, by mutation, mystery, the first tiny petals, not green, now red, yellow, blue, pink, a glorious insect landing pad, and the first bees, butterflies, wasps, and coming soon, the birds. Mammals chasing insects discover fruits, nuts, seeds. Dinosaurs chomp leaves, flowers, and their seed-filled fruits. And as they lumber along, digesting, poop seeds along the way. A vegetarian duck-billed dinosaur, our local hadrosaur, 30 feet long, 16 feet tall, long, flat snout, mounted with a holly, bony crest for trumpeting to its mates, and hundreds of teeth, munches ferns, shrubs, pine branches, and fresh flowers, migrates north on its big back legs, trailed by hungry Tyrannosaurus, to tend its young in nestling nurseries, and clambers south to die near San Diego on a coastal plain that will one day rise as the Santa Ana Mountains. The green continents are now florid, North America, dazzling and buzzing. I mentioned the Santa Ana, he went to San Diego, but what's it doing in the Santa Ana Mountains? That's because, as the book tells the story, this land is actually Mexico. It was dragged up from Mexico by the San Andreas Fault. So you can read all about it in the book. Okay, so I'm going to just do a little intersection here about the Pliocene because I'm on this kick. So the Pliocene was from approximately 5 million years ago to 2 million years ago. It's a very short era, and it was an era of massive transition from the previous, many hundreds of million years old era called the Miocene, when the Earth was just tropical. Antarctica, the Arctic, covered in forests filled with animals, Southern California coastline, oh, crazy animals, like, oh my gosh, it was just so rich. The carbon dioxide of parts per million was up toward 800. It was hot. The whole world was tropical. And then everything changed dramatically over 3 million years, because that's how the world works, except for meteor strikes. And so the tectonic plates just, I don't know, they went on a ride. They started really shifting. So I'm going to read just a couple of the things that happened during that time that affected Southern California specifically. So in the middle of the Miocene, 3 million years ago, that's the last time the Earth was at 420 parts per million of carbon dioxide, which we are right now. 3 million years ago, India, which is a continent in and of itself, thrust into Eurasia for millions of years, shoves harder, continent into continent, towering overrides, thrusts, warps, and crumblings. The Himalayas billow toward 5 miles high, blocking shifting monsoons and the tropical jet stream. That changes the climate in Southern California entirely. The Himalayas. Everything's connected. The Tibetan Plateau freezes to an ice desert, shining sunlight back into space. Ice sheets advance as the North Atlantic shivers. The world cools, heats, cools. Along the Southern California coast, warm summer rain stops falling. Plants seeking survival cling to scattered local niches. The last subtropical leaf-browsing horses, camels, and all the other browsers, completely gone. Pronghorns and the grazing horses flourish. Well, in addition to all of this change, South America was carried by the mantle and clicked into the long tail end of North America, volcanoes, and the Isthmus of Panama. That blocked the Gulf Stream and the whole climate going around toward Europe, and the Arctic shifted. And there was a meteor strike, half a mile wide meteor struck in the South Pacific, sending up clouds of debris, everything just boom, 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 over 3 million years. And the granite spine of the Sierra Nevada, hard pushed from underneath, ancient rocks to the top, gray rain-washed old bones exposed, tilts sharply, sinks west toward the San Joaquin Sea, flaunting its glittery underpinnings, granite lifted as an east-facing wall, sheerest, highest in the world. The southern mountains soar tallest. Mount Whitney rises, a mountain waking. Clouds from the coast halt against the ascending Sierra. On the east side, mountain runoff flowing through dry weather grasslands streams into Owens Lake. We remember Mulholland, lawnmowers, gutters full of runoff, Hockney pools, birds of paradise. So this was the beginning of our water supply. So when I think about this climate change, that we are now at 420 parts per million and rising swiftly, makes me so angry. I don't know what to do with myself. And so I decided to write a book of poetry because I can dump it all there. It's my howl, and I'm howling all I want, naming names. It's greatly liberating to give myself permission to write The Undertakers, which is a work in progress. So here is just a short piece from The Undertakers. This piece is called Wealth in a Gilded Age. What is wealth in a gilded age? Stockpiled Italian furnishings? Houses larger than hospitals? Owning more than everything? Has it always been the course of blood to heat a power suit? To drip down the channel of a red tie from chin to glands? To amplify fat luxury lips to a wet red slash above a tightened neck? If sparks from the stars grinding by overhead have nothing to do with it, what are those sparkling treasures boxed in black velvet, guarded by military dragons, flashing the mirrors of fear? Wherever light might escape, the power grid keeps the doors sealed. Wealth in a gilded age hides itself with itself. Only dust can put a finger on it. So my most recent book is Dear Traveler. This is a book that tracks a lifetime, the cycle of a life from beginning to end and back again, and a round of the seasons. And it attempts to address, given the current circumstances, how shall we live? So this book accompanies a traveler and offers observations. I'm going to begin with a praise of rain, because really it is pretty fabulous. I mean, it's pretty strange, but it's pretty fabulous. The flowers tell us that. Traveler. Blue bluster, leaves, branches, whirl, bend in mighty swoops, long, glassy trails of rain slant, straighten. Sunlight breaks into the rain drench, blazing the rowdy trees, dazzling the windows. Joyous today, unable to sit, to look down at letters, shifting, twisting, shaking, bending back. Traveler, look down. 10 pebbles block the path. Kick aside or ask directions. This poem takes up again the issue of beauty. It's, to me, beauty is the sustaining nature of life. Everything is beautiful if you really look at it. Blood is beautiful, viscera are beautiful, tree trunks are beautiful. There's beauty in life, and it's irrepressible. And I welcome that to myself, to recognize that every day as an antidote to despair. Traveler, what is the role of beauty in times of misfortune? Bombs crater the concrete city, broken shells on a dry beach, gouged accretions await the sweeping away, a bulldozer's blade, the victor's knife. Bombs can't help themselves. Salmon spawn surged into designated nests. An overwhelming army mates with the target. Hatchlings grimace, tumble to the sea. Thus, terror returns to the stream. Some of us who pay for it watch on screens, read, listen to reports. Where is the measuring stick, the newest laser tool calculating fossiled hearts, rivers, weather, oceans, fields? Others of us grip our bloody hands. Traveler, we go on. We go on. A threadbare sky holds up the sun. Border beyond border, the dove's perfect opalescent egg in the jay's perfect beak. Blasted sand, bristles diamond perfect light, broadcasting astonishment across greater and greater distances. And I'll conclude with this poem. Traveler, you are the song of your own making without knowing the notes. Music rises without tongue, no strings, no reeds. The sound begins as a chorus. Desert winds desire brush and spare stalks of grass. How dry sticks sing is what the wind wants to know. How do you hear when even your ears are singing? Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Let's have another hand for Susan Sunday. The verse and essays in Mike Songson's Letters to My City constitute a magnificent praise poem for the people, the neighborhoods, and the communities of Los Angeles. When it came out in 2019, I was about a year into the poems for 300 Streets, and I was starting to feel the sort of self-doubt that can really mess with your head in the middle of a long project. Mike's book was a breath of fresh air, a beacon. Yes, that is why we do the work. Later, when I was teaching a summer high school program at Libros Schmibros in Boyle Heights, I invited Mike to take students on a tour of City Hall. He did, reciting poetry as we rounded the parapet at the top of the city. I am alive in Los Angeles, he declared in one of his best-loved poems. And there, laid out for these kids, was the entire city, just as he promised. Mike Songson.
Hey, it's beautiful to be here. How's everybody doing? I loved Tom's 300 Streets of Venice. There was a great mix of concrete and abstract. There'll be some very specific intersections and places landmarks that you'll recognize, and then it will kind of go into this sort of abstract surrealism, and then to this kind of existential question, and then right back to the intersection. And so I really loved it. And so I can't wait I'm glad to have a physical copy tonight walking out of here. So that's beautiful. And during the pandemic, I read Susan's Sacred Sites cover to cover, and what a beautiful book. So man, I'm really honored to be here with all of you, and let's have some fun. The Inland Empire is a fertile crescent in the cradle of Mount San Gorgonio and the shadow of Mount Baldy, a rolling valley once filled with hundreds of acres of orange, lemon, apricot, and olive orchards along the Santa Ana River, nestled below San Jacinto, an hour away from the ocean, desert, and snow. Go upland, go Rancho, go Ontario, or further afield to Rialto, Fontana, Riverside. Generations of families drive Euclid and Route 66. Even Steinbeck's Okies found their milk and honey in bungalow belts next to California's oldest winery. There's sacred geometry in the IE. Main Street America in the 21st century. Diverse 909 families reflect our nation's future. The landscape is a blank slate for all to paint. Read the stories of Susan Straight. Her books celebrate generations of folks flourishing in a landscape of hope, a California crossroads where everybody looks up because the mountains surround on all sides. Feel the community pride from a caravan of classic low riders. The Inland Empire is a fertile crescent in the cradle of the future present. Go upland, go Rancho, go Ontario, go California. Did any of you ever go to Middle Earth Records? Middle Earth Records. It was in Downey. It was an incredible record store. My other place of birth was Middle Earth. All men have secrets, and here is mine, so let it be known. Sometime around 1989, I started going to Middle Earth Records in Downey. It was damn near the only place between Long Beach and Melrose that you could get rare music on import. Usually I was sitting in Shotgun in Philip Kwan's 1983 Mazda RX-7. Kwan wasn't even 16 yet, but his older brother, Young, let him take the car. We went all over LA County with the windows down and the music loud. Stop me if you think that you've heard this one before. Middle Earth was where we bought cassette tapes of Depeche Mode, The Smiths, The Cure, New Order, Susie and the Banshees, Echo and the Bunnymen, early U2, before they put it in the iPhone. I even got that Bowie compilation, Changes. My other best friend, Philip Medina, was usually with us too, and Medina loved The Police, UB40, Scritti, Politti, Trash Can Sinatra's, Howard Jones, and we all loved Morrissey. The three of us rolled to Middle Earth from our neighborhood in Cerritos, sometimes on the 605 North, sometimes on Lakewood Boulevard down the long thoroughfare past Alondra, Rosecrans, Imperial, and Firestone. K-Rock was our sonic Bible. Richard Blade played our soundtrack. Middle Earth, the center of our map where we went to fill up. New Wave was modern rock post-punk. Burn down the disco, hang the blessed DJ, because the music that they constantly play says nothing to me about my life. I got the Stone Roses Fool's Gold on import at Middle Earth in 1990. They made me want to go to Manchester, and Morrissey taught me about British poetry. Keats and Yeats are on your side, and Wilde is on mine. Middle Earth held the Holy Grail. All the answers were there. And within a few years, we started going to Aaron's Records and other hip stores. But Middle Earth was my place of birth where it all started. Our oasis in the suburban wasteland. It was dark as I drove the point home. By the time I got to UCLA in 1992, those years of close listening taught me how to break down language. I've seen this happen in other people's lives, now it's happening in mine. Lyrics were my liturgy, and whether it was Morrissey telling me the Queen is dead. By the way, Morrissey told us the Queen is dead in 87, you guys. 35 years ahead, right? Whether it was Morrissey telling me the Queen is dead, or the Diggable Planet schooling me on the Black Arts movement, or early 90s hip-hop hipping me to Roy Ayers, P-Funk, and Donald Byrd, the more I heard, the more I learned, the more I explored. There was a light and it never goes out. I dug as deep as I could, and though I was born in Long Beach, my other place of birth was Middle Earth. Record stores and bookstores, right? I mean, what's more sacred than that? This poem is for Mike Davis. In the land of the lost mammoths with pirates, bats, and dragons and praise of barbarians, you saw Hollywood's dark shadow. Heading south of No North in the city of Courts, you set the night on fire in Echo Park a generation after they called the Red Hill. You found your thrills listening to Dorothy Healy at 84th in Vermont. Then you hit Pogo Swamp to listen to Levi Kingston's intergenerational swing and ascension. You drove a Gray Line tour bus while reading Carrie McWilliams with Filipino tourists. You annotated the diagram of the silver geriatrics who tried to kill Los Angeles. After attending UCLA, you split fast to Belfast to escape and write about prisoners of the American dream. Reagan's magical mystery tour du jour, the war on drugs unlocked the hammer and the rock. You called their bluff a year before Rodney was struck. Driving a big rig truck seemed like it could be sustaining, but you found your calling Fortress Architecture and the LAPD for what they are, sunshine and noir. You were even there the day the sheriffs executed Ruben Salazar inside the Silver Dollar by Laguna Park on Whittier Boulevard. While the world watched LA turn, you presented the case for letting Malibu burn. You excavated dead cities and late Victorian holocausts. You demonstrated that the antidote to ecology of fear is magical urbanism. Let's not forget the rise of the coronavirus. 15 years before, you saw the monster at our door. From the flames of New York to Dante's Inferno, your voice was so sharp you asked who would build the ark. In 1997, after I read as much of your work as I could, I took your class, The Emerging Latino Metropolis at UCLA. In my final quarter before graduating, you helped reveal layers of identity so we could remember we. Your footnotes, the ropes I used to climb into LA history. I read at least a dozen authors I saw quoted in your prose. You invited us into your home and shared outlines of your essays so we could write our own someday. Just want to say a couple quick words about Mike Davis. Incredibly generous guy. And there was this quote that Howard Zinn said about Eugene Debs that really applied to Mike Davis. He said that he was fierce in his political convictions, but deeply warm in his personal relations. And that's really what Mike Davis was. True story, he probably gave me about 100 books over 25 years. When he retired in 2015, he let my buddy Victor Zamora and I, he let us raid his bookshelf. So we both walked out with a couple of boxes. I still have a bunch of them. We walked out of his office in UC Riverside with a bunch of books. So my man Mike Davis was the real deal, and though sometimes he was misunderstood by people, they didn't know him. So, you know. So we are here in Venice, and Beyond Broke is a sacred space. And what's incredible is that we have another sacred space right next door, Spark, Ms. Judy Baca. And so here's a poem called Whose Story Do We Tell? And it's paying homage to both Judy Baca and also her Great Wall of Los Angeles. So Judy Baca paints to interrogate whose monument where, whose story do we tell? Baca paints public history inventory in the inner city. The Chumash animal spirits escaped the La Brea tar pits, canoeing to the Channel Islands with a school of blue dolphins. California was Turtle Island before Gente de Razon colonized. Long before Cabrillo and Portola, grizzlies roamed the flora of marshlands and willow thickets, the legend of Khalifa. Junipero Serra envisioned 21 Spanish missions, 44 pobladores built the Pueblo. The Great Wall of Los Angeles travels chronologically, recording social memory, the technicolor trajectory of the city beneath, Spanish land grants in Pio Pico, California ranchos, the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, the California Gold Rush, Sutter's Mill to San Francisco, Joaquin Murrieta, the original Zorro. Chinese built a railroad only to be massacred in 1871, the largest mass lynching in American history. The rise of California's citrus, see the selective traditions, collisions at the crossroads, unsigned Indian treaties, the boom of the 1880s, LA mountains to the shore, women in the war riding the red car, the California aqueduct draining the Owens Valley, children working in factories, striking workers, the market crash, prohibition, you better speak easy, the cops will come. People's History profiles women and people of color, celebrating civic identity, honoring ancestors. David Alfaro Siqueiros, Olvera Street in America Tropical. Facadism and a whitewashed adobe. City fathers whitewashed your mural, but they can't whitewash history. Polyangular perspective, a hazardous metropolis, environmental justice, Boyle Heights to Manzanar, the 442nd Battalion, the Go for Broke Unit. Brooklyn Avenue was Jewish. The Red Scare and McCarthyism, division of the Vadios, concretizing an ancient river, forebears of civil rights, destruction of Chavez Ravine, popular culture in the age of white flight, farewell to Rosie the Riveter, goodbye to Dust Bowl refugees, a great train robbery, illusions of prosperity. Baca paints what City Hall forgot. Luisa Moreno in the Bracero program, Dr. Charles Drew's influence, David Gonzalez and Pacoima, the federal highway system, the birth of rock and roll stole soul from Big Mama Thornton. An age of appropriation, erasure, and assimilation, our shared human condition, a choreographed dance, singing gospel from the streets. We fight fascism at home and abroad. Who we can be in solidarity. Honoring stories, uprising of the mujeres, mi abuelita, mural making a social practice. Organizing a ofrenda, collaborate first, then paint. Calling all couch potatoes, sing the song of suburbia somewhere in San Fernando. Turn on your television set, turn up in your tract house, take up the sword of justice, be on the lookout for monarch butterflies. A new era of art and expansion, end housing segregation, right the wrongs of repatriation. Okay, boomer, come along Coldwater Canyon. The battle for Los Angeles, reconciling historic narratives. Whose story do we tell? Whose monument where? Thank you very much, you guys. Thank you so much, and congratulations to Tom. Thank you.
Mike Songson. So I met Beth Ruscio because as we felt our ways into writing after long careers, she as an actor and I as an educator, we shared the same guide, Laurel Ann Bogan. When you share a mentor, there's a certain kinship that goes beyond mutual respect for one another's work. There's an acknowledgement of a shared way of seeing, speaking, and thinking about what and why you write. We have both been very fortunate to work with Laurel, and it's the beginning of a beautiful friendship. Beginning with a conversation of our shared experience, we have become good friends. Beth has been an enormous source of support in the last few years. As anyone who knows her well will tell you, she makes herself available to friends in a deep way that encourages and heartens. There are not many who lift others as high as Beth Ruscio. And of course, she is a fabulous writer. The best noir cocktail bar poem in the history of Los Angeles literature is unquestionably Beth's Of Matchbooks, Phone Booths, and the Loss of Nicodels in her prize-winning first collection, Speaking Parts, which is for sale in the bookstore. She's got her finger on the pulse of LA, and let me tell you, she knows when it bleeds. Let us welcome Beth Ruscio.
God, who is he talking about? Oh, Lordy. Hi, everybody. I changed my mind about which poems I was going to read every minute, listening to everybody else. I spent the whole morning and afternoon reading at the Botanic Gardens in Claremont, and it was this long conversation with poets. So what did you decide, Beth? I think what I decided is that I want to read this poem here. Okay, so in April of 1975, Saigon fell. About 15 years later, I'm an actor. I was part of making a movie about the fall of Saigon for a series on HBO called Vietnam War Stories. And our episode was about the fall of Saigon. So this poem begins kind of realistically, but then it takes a big surrealistic turn. And it's called Dirty Work. And it begins with this epigraph from Ocean Vuong, Vietnamese poet. And by the way, in Vietnam, they call the Vietnam War the American War. A helicopter lifting the living just out of reach. Ocean Vuong, dirty work. Night air whipped up by whirring blades cools us. The whole chute, an atmospheric swamp, invades this desert basin, thick, hot, sticky, like a dragon's exhale. At the location, an LA stand-in for the American Embassy. Old French architecture, green around the faucets, black mold that won't scrub off. We trudge through the plot, grease painted, hair strategically oil slicked up, smoke Marlboros and feel the heat equalize in our lungs. Now, the middle of the last night, we bless this loud, doorless 1975 era chopper. We can't hear anything anymore. We're leaving. Scream your head off, Vietnam. Real Marines, cast as Marines, won't stop pumping their toy rifles, barking, evacuate, move, unass this place, now. Takeoff feels like a giant standing up. The director says, you don't even have to act. Just let the gravity wash over you. Below us, the pitch blacks punctured with street lamps as we careen over the Hollywood freeway. Oncoming headlights, rows of white and pre-dawn tails streak red in their brightness receding, as after a long night of tripping, trails, high on altitude, or nothing at all, or after days on end of shooting the fall of Saigon. Never been in a helicopter before. On this Dramamine-free ride, we're passing through the gates of nausea and pandemonium. We have to be leaving, but are soon tugged back by the unchecked cargo of wannabe refugees, their arms hooked onto the landing skids, causing a drag on the engine's motor, a baffled whirring, high-pitched and shrill, like the wailing cry of the useful birds of Vietnam, the cattle egrets and oxpeckers that hang out in the grassy verges of airports who do dirty work, attending to the water buffalo, grooming them, pecking out ticks, grease, snot, mucus, earwax. It's how they're nourished, grazing on giants who tolerate them, violently shake them off, passively allow them back. Fugitives are shrugged off with a sharp bank, unlatching them, pitching them off to the long drop into the South China Sea, all of them flailing, then soaking wet, handed towels, then on the next take, dunked again, all of them extras, summarily wrapped off the set in bathrobes. On board, we feel the jolt of their departures like a convulsion. Feel the chopper suddenly burst higher, severed from attachments, eclipsed by the score. Hendrix growling through, "There must be some way out of here," as if he isn't already years and years in the ground. Every time you fly, look for useful birds. Landless, they delight the sky. Yeah, it happened that we'd shot it like right around in April 1990, and it was one of those freak Aprils where it was hotter than any summer day. And they had to make us up to look like we were like we were sweating. And we were sweating our heads off, and the stuff kept melting off us, and they had to apply more to it. Anyway, it was what a time. Because James Cushing is in the house, I moved to read this pantoum. I went to my high school reunion. I was reluctant because it was in a small town in Iowa. And knew what they would think about me, being a coastal elite, and of course they all voted for someone I don't like. But this is the poem that I came away with, and the title, I'm borrowing this from the book that was in every dorm room when I was in college. Be Here Now. The indigo cover with the mandala on the front. Be here now. We take the rural route out, away from our class reunion, fields of autumn dried corn stalks in a sudden graveyard. Now we're here. Away from our class reunion, an incongruous sculpture garden in a sudden graveyard. We're here now. From the trunk, Vicky pulls an incongruous garden, a spray bottle, a rag, a soft hand brush. In the trunk, Vicky keeps her kit to sweep and tidy. Spray bottle, rag, soft brush, the graves of her mother and dad. She sweeps and tidies. They died nearly the same day, her mother and dad, 20 years apart. On the headstone, death dates nearly the same, plus her still breathing brothers' names, 20 years apart on that headstone, but not her name. She cleans her breathing brothers, plus to the left where some cousins lie, but not Vicky. She cleans someone's twins, 2 days old, left of where some cousins lie. Quiet. We imagine that funeral. Whose twins? 2 days old? It's a very small town. Quiet. Imagine that funeral. She knows or is related to everyone. It's this small town, far from here. I live in a big city. She's related to everyone here. She talked me into coming from far, the big city I live in. My grievances evaporated once I was here. She talked me into it in the graveyard with the wind so soft. Grievances evaporated here. Nostalgia comes easy. I could never live in the graveyard with the wind so soft, here, lying in this placid yard. Nostalgia's easy. I couldn't live here. She's thought a lot about where she ends up. Never lying in a placid yard. She's read, we die with our eyes open. She's thought she'll end up in a handful of small urns. She could still travel, dying with her eyes open. I let this serene scene imprint. A handful of small urns, traveling. You can live all over the world, letting serene scenes imprint. Being here now, then there. We could live all over the world, fields of autumn dried corn stalks, being here now, then there. We take the rural route out. So I act and I write poetry and I take walks, which I think helps me write poetry, and I bake and I do laundry. That's all I do. No, I do lots of things. So this poem, when the invasion of Ukraine started almost a little over a year ago now, I started writing what I was calling the ghost light poems. A ghost light in a theater is a light that they keep sort of usually in center stage. It's essentially so that when you walk into a dark theater, you don't, bump into all the furniture. But it's also for the ghosts, because there's always a ghost in a theater. So I was captivated, and I'm going to read this. This isn't really exactly an epigraph, but I read this, and then I started writing these poems. I was captivated about the location of this poem, which is in the basement of a theater in Mariupol. And I read this, like I said, it's not really an epigraph, it's from George Eliot, Middlemarch. For the growing good of the world is partly dependent on unhistoric acts, and that things are not so ill with you and me as they might have been is half owing to the number who lived faithfully a hidden life and rest in unvisited tombs. Her feat of suspended disbelief. Breck's strafed earth mother courage had just closed. The company was all here, doling out a useful what the hell world weariness. You could do without virtue, but not bread. To the eternal night of backstages, the actors were accustomed. Easily, their eyes adjusted to the bowels of a space they knew over many seasons, its shadows, its hiding places, knew just how to find the comfortable positions, used to waiting, living for their moments, this, their home. On this frightful day, where was their fright? The townspeople wanted to know. These actors in this crisis, cool. How? In lush piles, red Lyonnaise curtains absorbed the loudest shelling, reduced it to dull thuds, felt more than heard. Barrage of splintered steel crashing into broken glass. With every jolt, they startled anew. Down here, quiet was the commodity most dear. Youngest in the troupe, actress with the supple hands, she'd learned sign language for her mute character, Katrin, and so offered up her art, the phrasing and gestures, iPhone screen propped up as illumination. She gave a silent show. Her hands shaped the words, I will now play for you. Then she conjured a violin out of thin air, mimed the heft of its neck in her left hand, the fingers on the frets, imaginary bow in her right she held so delicately, and closing her eyes, played with such conviction they believed in its mournful notes, could ride out each cacophony above as below she folded explosions into the score, pausing mid-flourish, then in defiance of the over-elaborate tempo of war, her strokes grew most legato, evanescent as the last dreams of morning. They transported themselves. They transported outside themselves, taken inside a most exquisite ache. And for the length of this private concert, the audience was no longer the enemy's captives, but willingly became hers. Okay, I have two little short ones left, and then I'm going to read, and the last one I'm going to read is basically to get you in the mood for Venice. So I said I act. I'm going to do a play where I'm playing Alice Neal, the painter, and so then I had the wonderful excuse to just completely absorb myself in her work, and I wrote this poem. And this is her. I go so out of myself and into them that when they leave, I feel like an untenanted house. Alice Neal. Out, into. She invites them and their curiosity into her. As she empties to make room, they move in. She's sentenced again, intends to get lost instead of jumping out to follow them out the door. Painting, she erases herself from the room, hidden as the seams of wallpaper, her hands never not stained or wholly occupied. In the right, grasp like a bristling bouquet all her brushes, while her left commits in bold black the outlines of the body in front of her, as if to caress, gentle, perhaps, sure. And in the silences, she closes the space between and with her sitters. At arm's length, she can see every pore. Even the fully clothed must feel X-ray seen as she color washes, affixes light, giddy sacraments of paint, a consuming thrall to color, the chill Baker Miller pink up against a jolt of cobalt violet, and they materialize on canvas. She portrays in the thick of the rat race, suffering all that goes on, life. They look directly into her, and now she's a single nervous system in a brush, in her hand, a conductor's baton, not music, but music. This is a poem I wrote a while back. It's called Cinderella's on the Venice Pier. And it really did happen. And it's a kind of a little baby, when I was a baby poet. Cinderella's on the Venice Pier. Girl tugs the bottom of her Orangina, this is for Tom. Girl tugs the bottom of her Orangina t-shirt. Sand shakes out. On her pancaked flip-flops, she slaps down the pier towards a wedding couple. Barefoot, strapless bride, slick-backed, ponytailed groom. Man films. A woman waves a powder wand over their noses. Kiss, says the man with the camera. Orangina presses the back of her hand up against her lips, rocking her hips. Mufflerless, biplane buzzes overhead, kiting a sign. The all-new Volvo V50, you can tell how old the promo, the all-new Volvo V50, plane-shaped shadow, white slate. Big sister fishtails in on a scooter. It's just a movie, she stage whispers and wheelies off. Orangina lags behind the scooter, late, looking back at the vacant couple, feeling banished before it got good. Out on Beach Street, cooling their heels, leaned up against a white stretch limo, 6 dapper gray groom's mice voguing.
Beth Ruscio. I think somebody may have gone off with my poems there.
Oh my Lord. Oh my Lord. Thank you.
Without this, I'm mute. I want to start by thanking Future Cycle Press in Athens, Georgia for publishing 300 Streets of Venice, California, and to Future Cycle's Diane Kistner for her unflagging attention to both the big ideas and the small details. And my thanks also to friends who critiqued selections. Given that I'm here at Beyond Baroque, I owe particular appreciation to the Wednesday night poetry workshop, whose members have been both supportive and, fortunately, unsparing when my work has some distance to go before it's done. I'd also like to thank and express love to my family, to Don and Ari, who have heard these poems so many times that they can recite some of them from memory. So before and during COVID, I took long walks around Venice, and I decided I wanted to walk all its streets because we all had the time, right? So I counted them up. There are 300 of them. And meanwhile, I was reading Mike Songson's Letters to My City, as I mentioned earlier. I was also reading Bashow's Narrow Road to the Deep North. I was reading Harriet Mullen's Urban Tumbleweed, which is a series of walks she takes mostly around Mar Vista, and collections from Amy Uematsu, Seshu Foster, Eloise Klein-Healy, and many others who've written LA pieces. And I took a series of workshops, and this is just when I was getting to Beyond Baroque again, so this is about 5 years ago, I guess. Workshops organized by Bill Moore on the history of LA poetics. So I began writing my impressions of the walks in a notebook, and these slowly morphed into the book. I saw much of what I'll read on the walks, but I also dreamed about walks that I did not take. And those are here too. You'll have to figure out which one is which. So I always read, I've been doing this for about, 3 months, 4 months. I begin with Brenta Place, and you'll see why, I think, in a moment. A boy around 6 lies on his back on a parkway lawn, his head at the base of a palm tree. He looks straight up at the column, into the fronds. This is not something his parents have done. This is not something his neighbors have done. No one, so far as he knows, has ever lain flat on the grass and watched a tree being a tree. What does he see flat on his back at the age of 6? He sees the word tall. He sees the word wind. He sees the word leaf. He sees the word sky. He sees the word blue. He sees the word green. He sees the word sun. He turns these words round and around, this way and that. Tall, sky, wind, sun, green, blue, wind, tall, leaf, tall, blue, sky. He has just learned to read and sees words in his head as real as trees. On Brenta Place, this is how life begins, words growing tall from the lawn. Vernon Avenue. In the street, behind a parked car, a white hen pecks at the gutter. I look over a wall. There it is, a small chicken coop, its door unlatched. I find the apartment and knock. A woman answers. Behind her, on the floor, a bare mattress, 2 kids asleep. I tell the woman, one of your chickens is out on the street. She thanks me. Together, we catch and recage the bird, latching the door securely. It's like this. I live here, so I think I know things. Then I see them, chickens and children. I don't know anything. Now, that family actually lived with its chickens and children on Vernon Avenue next to Wurstküche, which is a restaurant now on Lincoln Boulevard, and it was evicted by the owner of Wurstküche. It really pissed me off when he did that. But it's something that's happening through Venice. And in a couple of months, I'll just mention that the LA urban critic Judy Branfman and her crew, in which I'm proud to be participating, will be mounting an exhibition here at Beyond Baroque to document the wave of renter evictions in Venice and really throughout LA, since Venice is kind of a model for that, and suggest how they might be stemmed. I want you to keep an eye out for that exhibit. It's going to be at beyondbaroque.org. They'll probably be posting it around, I would imagine, mid-May. So on a similar note, this is Thatcher Yard, and before I read the poem, a little background. Thatcher Yard is a former LA municipal maintenance facility that was repurposed for housing for people living on the street. I refer in this, it's a kind of a crazy piece. I refer in it to the Serenissima Repubblica, which is the ancient name of Venice, Italy. It means the Serene Republic. This is when Venice was a Mediterranean empire builder. And I also mention Henry James, the novelist, whose Aspern Papers is set in Venice, Italy, and appeared at the turn of the century. The poem calls our own Venice a slum by the sea. And this is a phrase, yes, this is a phrase that actually comes from the 1930s and 40s, because that's how powerful folks in Los Angeles, and some people who are not powerful but just scared, thought of Venice, both because Venice was at one time a working class neighborhood, one of the real work, kind of rough on the edges working class neighborhood in LA, and because it was like Boyle Heights, like Echo Park and other neighborhoods, it was redlined and it was multiracial. So that's, I think, the background you'll need for this. See how we do here. I'll take questions after class. I start, by the way, with a series of excerpts from nextdoor.com, which is just great reading. Yeah, it's, I see we have fans here. It is great reading if you want a kind of moment to really lean into your paranoia. And so I took these directly from those conversations. Encampment on Thatcher Street, homeless with their shit, pools of garbage, reported this to police. Our neighborhood, once a fine neighborhood. At Thatcher Yard, the city once repaired equipment. This when Venice Beach, the pump-jacked, oil-slicked, red-lined slum by the sea, lived out its lives in low-rise bungalows, flats, and squats for rent to hairdressers, bricklayers, pensioned widows, teachers, drifters, mechanics, and janitors. Painters painted pictures. Poets wrote all night and burned their manuscripts at dawn because, for fuck's sake, if you want the glory, fucking write for television. January tides stormed cold with expatriate syllables. Named for Venice, Italy, this place was like that other one before its tourist century. Home to butchers, charwomen, and near aristos who turned palazzi into pensioni. Barely keeping house above the tide, they let to retired politicos and disgraced literati whose subalterns took the dankest rooms. A loveliness like that is hard to love. But Henry James, he dressed that city up in perfumed yardage to resist the stagnant summer reek of shit and rotting fish. Venice was an open sewer then, but James's readers walked above all that. Bound in blue cloth, gilt-lettered, collectible, volumes beautiful as any city. To read the book, the buyer slit apart the uncut pages with a penknife, sniffed the deckled edges, and inhaled fragrant whitewashed paper. No hint of sewer in it. So I understand my neighbor's disillusion. I too have heard the man on Rose and Lincoln scream and scream, and I was robbed, and I've seen needles, condoms, and the sidewalk's puddled piss, but things are complicated. And ghetto is a Venice word. Ghetto Nuovo, where smelters slagged their slop, and La Serenissima Repubblica di Venezia dumped its filthy Jews, my kin, and locked us up within the walls at sundown. Neighbors say they want those people out of here. We don't mean harm. But what about the children and the ugliness? When speaking confidentially, my neighbors say they'd like to truck that human garbage to a desert town, turn them out in Barstow, build a tented camp in Victorville, make them fucking work. What my neighbors really want is camp guards, booted black and badged, academy equipped to disinfect the streets. The young cadets are taught they really must police sometimes. Not the job the trainees want, but yes, the job my neighbors hire them to do. My neighbors want a beachside Henry James, cleaned up streets for people who will pay the bed and breakfast rent, walk the Sunday boardwalk, burn their beach skins on the lemon sand, and for problem children, belligerent or sad. There's a well-reputed sanatorium up north in Canyon Country. Throughout the Middle Sea, Venetian arms kept a kind of peace, and what my neighbors really want is a stiletto from the Serenissima. Melt a pig of iron, hammer hot and fold it, hammer hot and fold it, hammer hot and hone that edge to cut the uncut pages of an antiquary's book. The slag, the lime, the lead, the sulfur, truck it to the ghetto with its dirty people who refuse to pay the market rate. Now, open the book. Its laundered pages freshen indoor air. Somewhat on the same note, although I think a bit lighter of touch. This is Flower Avenue. At the corner of Flower and Lincoln, a single-story structure, 15,000 square feet, zoned for commercial development. This property has witnessed all 5 ages of man. First, the age of used books. Decades ago, a bookstore was here, a fire trap of a business, back issues of Playboy and Sunset in boxes, the boxes in stacks, the stacks leaning against rough bookcases, roughly nailed from pine slats. Silverfish gnawed at the mildewed pages. On floors and shelves, rat droppings. Above, long fluorescent tubes whose timid wattage failed to rout the shadows and their odors. After some years, the bookstore closed. A sign for lease appeared. Then, the age of furniture stores. At first, new neighbors wanted Indonesian nightstands sculpted from teak. Then Moroccan tiled patio tables. Then sea green storage units hauled from Eastern Europe's post-communist flotsam. Then custom-made sofas and love seats. Then life-size Buddhas seated and beatific St. Francis's standing. Then the age of antiques on consignment. Gilt imitations of French imitations of Roman and Greek originals. White marble, white gold, onyx jewelry, halogen lit, each item a precious gift. Then for long years, no tenant at all. Windows broken and boarded, a place for people without place. Some lived in cars piled with scavenged possessions. Some lived on sidewalks, backs against retaining walls, exhausted and gaunt. No one had greater need for Siddhartha and St. Francis, but the holy men had left the building long before. Then a sign appeared. Halloween Superstore. Costumes, masks, makeup, huge, open late. And so began the age of Halloween, the age of haunting children. It lasted 40 days and nights before giving up the ghost. And now, the signs announce the age of demolition. Crews will salvage what they can. The rest will go to landfill. We are a fallen people. We have far to fall. I was kind of worried when this was published because actually they've put up notification that there will be a new set of stores going in there, and they're going to gut it and redo it and so on. And then all the work stopped. And I thought, thank God my poet's born was saved. It's always struck me how many American cities bear the names of cities elsewhere in the world, and how many of these names are repeated across the North American map as if we can't come up with enough names of our own. This is a poem that is called the other American Venice. There's another Venice, a Floridian Venice. Its signage reprises California themes. There's a Valencia Hotel and a Venezia Park. There's a Venice Avenue, a Sunset Drive, an Alhambra Road, a Galleon Drive. At the continent's extremes, towns are the same and not the same. Streets are the same. Familiar, almost familiar. From Venice to Venice, it's a 40-hour summer drive through the grease of a hamburger heat. 3,000 miles on I-10, south on I-75, south again on Florida 681, off at exit 200, south across Roberts Bay, along the Tamiami Trail. This Venice is greener than mine, pocked with lakes and golf courses. Neighbors worry themselves about hurricanes, not earthquakes. Their elections go red, not blue. Their animal control officers catch alligators, not coyotes. Still, it's so much like my beach town. 3 homeless shelters, a McDonald's, a Chick-fil-A. Here are births and deaths, weekending vacationers, invasive species, warming tides, police helicopters, concerned neighbors. Much further east, there's a third Venice, an ancient city. Familiar, almost familiar. Some cities are cities just once. Some are cities again and again. This is Santa Catalina Island viewed from Venice Beach. Yeah, indeed. Facing Catalina, I hold myself still as if the island is a small bird that might startle to flight. Blue and remote, it shares a horizon with the summer-setting moon. Watched for too long, both vanish behind clouds. It's a fugitive's habit. Venice is a pilgrimage site, one that traffics in relics, postcards, t-shirts, an ocean's blessed water. This summer's furnace heat, no one expects it. Tourists are sun-smote, their faces sunken and weary. One woman has her finger behind a sunglass lens, wiping something away. An itch, a lash, a tear. Poor traveler. What brought this on? She turns her head toward the white ocean. "Excuse me," she says. "Is that really an island out there?" Last night's TV airs hate without interruption, even after I switch it off. Can't sleep. At sunrise, I walk the mile between my bed and the ocean. There are others here, some walking the tide line, some on their boards in the water. Not even the gulls speak. To the south, that mountain. This is Clune Avenue. At 10 p.m., Ms. P steps out of her car. A man comes out of nowhere screaming obscenities. He towers over her. He rages. "You best be dead," he hollers. She stands as still as a utility pole. He looms and shouts, but he doesn't touch her. His fingertips never lose control or fold into a fist. His feet, like hers, are fixed to the pavement. A neighbor calls police. The obscene man hears a siren. Finally, he steps back and runs, eluding both the foot pursuit and the helicopter spotlight. An officer takes a report from the woman, whose voice and hands shake as she speaks. She vomits on the officer's shoes. "I'm sorry," she says to the uniform. "Sorry." The neighbors, clustered a little way off, talk quietly among themselves. Some have had run-ins with the night man. Everybody knows him. He has a blanket around his shoulders, or he's in a hoodie. It's gray, or it's blue. He wears a patchy beard. No, he's clean-shaven. His front teeth are yellow. Yellow, they're missing. He smells. No, he doesn't. He's 30. He's 50. He's white. He's Mexican. Everybody knows he's crazy. An alcoholic. On fentanyl. Sleeps in his car. Sleeps on the beach. Has a tent on 3rd Street. Look at the way he stood over that woman. Straight back, shoulders squared up. For sure, he's a veteran. Does anyone know the woman? Does she live around here? One neighbor, a retired prosecutor, says the man made a criminal threat as defined by California Penal Code Section 422, subsection A. A woman, another attorney, says it's way more than a threat. Ms. P feared for her life. She's thinking Penal Code Section 240, assault. Truth is beauty. The neighbors are regal tonight in their truth. Under the streetlight, clothed in their knowing, the neighbors resplendent shimmer. Meanwhile, the vanishing night man runs as fast as he can in every direction. Meanwhile, doubled over and retching, Mrs. P says, "I'm sorry, I'm so sorry." Later, neighbors walk back to their homes. Later, their bedrooms dark. They speak softly to significant others. "Yeah," they say, "we saw the guy. We saw the woman. We called police. Let's listen for footsteps in case he comes back. Listen for hooves, for unclipped claws clacking on concrete. Let me tell you. Let me tell you." Into something a little more uplifting. This is called Peacock. In the first month of the plague, the bird escapes the yard and all year long drags his dreamy gown along the streets. The neighbors post photos. Here he is on Strong's, on Tivoli, at the Grand Canal, at Redwood Avenue, North Star, Mass, Victoria, Marine, Dewey. One neighbor writes all the others, "I saw him crossing Venice Boulevard today. One car had to swerve, came close to killing him. Someone up there must be watching over him." The neighbors name him and wonder if there are others. Someone says she's seen the hens. No noise complaints, though they scream like newborns, peacocks. A friend says, there was that film 40 or 50 years ago, small town, first snow of the season, fountain in the plaza, the water frozen while it fell. From nowhere, a peacock flies in, lands right next to the fountain, fans his feathers as if it's spring. In the movie, it means something. Later, online, someone says, "We need this beauty now." Someone else replies, "What beauty? He's a dirty bird. More crap to clean." Another, "He's beautiful, but he's not safe. There's psychos out there who hacksaw bills off pelicans. Last week, someone drowned a clutch of ducklings at that park in Playa. People are insane and no one gives a shit." Another, "Wild dogs could kill him just as easy. Doesn't take a lunatic." Another, "Animal control should just trap the bird. Palos Verdes traps its peacocks all the time, takes them to the arboretum." And in the end, that's just what animal control does. Later, when the plague years end, the homebound talk of watching from their windows. It was magical, a neighbor says. Iridescent green and midnight blue. We want our moment back. And this will be the last from the book, then there'll be 3 more. Then you'll all go out in the back and you'll have wine and cheese and get books and sign. We'll have people sign them. Just want to make sure that we're clear on the agenda here. Stop in the bookstore first, then go back. Yeah, okay. Ozone Avenue. For those of you who are not in Venice, there is an avenue named Ozone in Venice. Does that mean that there was a Jim Ozone somewhere who was a real estate person? I don't know. A neighbor on Ozone Avenue asks me, why write about streets? Why not write about people? It's like your streets are empty. My neighbor is right. I sweep my streets clean of crowds. I lock neighbors in their rooms. No one, not one of these stick figures has a name. Some I call you. Some I call we. Most I call neighbor. A woman I knew in college smoked clove cigarettes and opened her dorm room to parties. Bowie orbited her turntable. In her room, I couldn't hear myself think. I sat on the carpet, back to the wall. I stared at her windows, her electrical outlets, the smoke from her ashtray. Week after week, lost in white noise. Nothing has changed. I like the lonesome last dark just before sunrise. I like empty afternoon sidewalks and dark rooms, pensive at night. I explained to my neighbor, well, these poems, they're a little like still lifes. My name isn't Neighbor, she says. I want to conclude tonight with 3 recent poems. These are all part of a new project whose tentative title is My American Century. The first is called Travel Advisory. What you'll find mostly in America is white drywall and ceilings. White paint goes on and on, one enormous room to another. The family pictures and the flat screens try to be important, as do electric outlets, smoke alarms, and thermostats, but once you leave, it's the starkness you remember. Pulsing light that resists intimacy, a remote and lunar brightness. Windows, double-paned, resist outdoor sound. Adult conversations fall from mezzanines like snow. Stories of the country's violence are exaggerated. You will return home having loved something here, not one particular, but the vast and ordered interior expanse. So, children, before streaming, before DVDs, before VHS, before cable, there were just 3 networks. We were so impoverished. And the only way you could watch the 1939 version of The Wizard of Oz was if you tuned in once a year when CBS aired it. Me and my sister watched every year. And then in 1968, my folks bought a color TV. And we realized why when Dorothy opened the door of her tornadoed Kansas house. It was such a big deal. Oh my God, the witch's skin was green. Glinda's gown was pink. Dorothy's shoes really were ruby. This is Dorothy's Twister didn't stop in Munchkinland. It headed out from Oz. It colorized the sepia in all my country cities. This took years of storm cloud wandering the grid of unmarked county roads, snapping at the wires in the noontime streets. As it pushed into my city, I sat with Mom and Dad. who studied paint chips from the Sherwin-Williams Book of Whites. There were ecrus, salts, and eggshells. They wondered which and didn't raise their voices. Then the sky went black. The howl of an angry afternoon. Thundered windows broke. Newspapers, palm tree fronds, cellophane gyred round the funnel. Whole houses gusted up and fell into the wreckage. Later, we unlocked the door. Outside, a blooming bird of paradise. A street tree polka-dotted pomegranate red. Bees, once striped black and white, now gemstones. The governor declared a public holiday. School was canceled. It took time adjusting to the glare. Vivid days, vermilion days, and azure nights followed all that week and into many years. It's all true. Oranges, purples, carnadines arranged into bouquets, and the yellows sloping steeply from the mountain to the kelpish browns of tide. We never said, but we were thankful for the storm. That was my century. If it's ended, if my child can't remember color, if the city's ashen, if the skin's gunmetaled right into its broken fingernails, then we must recite turquoise, goldenrod, citrine, rose. Before this last poem, I would like to again thank Beyond Baroque for hosting us, and thank Susan, Mike, and Beth for joining me tonight. And thank all of you for being here, both those of you who are here and those of you who are alive on the internet. This last piece is called An Anaheim Anthropocene. It requires a bit of backstory. I need to explain two terms. Sounds more and more like a history class. First, Anthropocene. I know you were as shocked as I was to look at your iPhone calendars in April 2022 and discover that we had changed geological eras. We were all born in the Holocene, which began 12,000 years ago at the end of the last ice age, and we got pretty comfortable in it. But it turns out that we've left so much plastic, metal, concrete, trash, and nuclear test fallout that 100,000 years from now, geologists will be able to read our calamitous existence in the rocks and the soil. And so, the Anthropocene Working Group of the Subcommission of Quaternary Stratigraphy of the International Commission of Stratigraphy, I am not making this up, has recommended that we declare a new geological era called the Anthropocene. It is just like that time when the dinosaurs decided that, hey, the Jurassic is so done. Time for the Cretaceous. And they all adjusted their wristwatches and went about their business for another 79 million years. Another note for the poem. By Anaheim, of course, I am referring to Disneyland, where the Disneyland Railroad wends through a primeval world, a lifelike moving diorama about the dinosaurs who go extinct to the tune of Stravinsky's Rite of Spring. I'm pretty sure that's all you need to know. Actually, there is one more thing. The people who kind of make these rides on Disneyland, they are called Imagineers. So some people who are native to LA know that, but many people who come from other places, that's inside information. Disney slows the train to view a vasty diorama. Animatronic tyrannosaur duels triceratops. This is a Cretaceous rite of 1967 spring. When you're 9, as in my seat I am, it's a thrill. The earth, so jungly, so fierce, so scaly and enraged. As I witness forking lightning dance, I'm smote with what's at stake. I am mammal, hairy scalped, umbilical scarred, like Danny's dog Muggsy and Furry, my sister's cat. I too born feeble and placenta wet, grown territorial, metabolism running hot and hungry. I am lambish, goatish, beefish, porkish, distant cousin to my meals. Now I witness, and I know whose side I'm on. Come, meteor, destroy primeval world. Let the shrewish, radish, molish puppets conquer Anaheim. Let these meekish creatures breed until the generations pass and I, my sister, mom, and dad replace the lizards. Imagineers behind the scenes, hear my prayer and lurch the steam train engine forward, leaving cave behind. At the station, we debark upon our own earth. Behold, around me, mammals mob Main Street. I shake the mammal Mickey's paw in mine. The mammal Lincoln speaks. Mammals ride the Matterhorn and haunt the haunted mansion. Above small world, fireworks ignite the sudden sky. The city is ours, and here we live. We live. Thank you very much. Thank you. Bookstore. Reception. Thank you so much.
Congratulations, Tom.